Hi, guys, and welcome back to Your Inner Spark. I'm Lana, and I am on a mission to help women eradicate shame so that they can step into their full potential and build the life of their dreams. Today, we welcome Dani from Over It Skincare, and we are going to dive into all things acne. So, thank you, Dani. I am so grateful to be sitting in this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you. Likewise, Lana. Thank you for all that you're doing and bravely sharing with all of us.
So, I ask every single guest this question, Dani. When is the first time you felt your inner spark?
You know, I love this question because I've been a fan of your podcast and listening to what everyone says, and it really made me sit back and think about that question because that inner spark was there before I ever realized it was there. Which is really cool. I think it's kind of like hopeful because you think, oh, I should be knowing what I'm doing or whatnot. But I think my inner spark really came with what I was going to do for a living. I mean, here we are talking acne, but really, I came from two parents that both were in service. My mom was a teacher, my dad was an ER nurse. And so I knew I was going to go down one of those paths. So one thing led to another, and I coached Special Olympics all through high school. Oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. I'm going to follow my mom's path and I want to be a special ed elementary school teacher. So that's kind of took a break after high school and I went into that, but I wasn't in a supportive marriage and he was not okay with me leveling up my knowledge or myself. And so I knew I was going to have to pay for this on my own. And it was interesting because I was going to be paying cash for a master's program, but what am I going to get to like go through school? How am I going to pay for all that? So my mom knew I was going to go to this community college. I was going to be transferred to a local university. And she said, did you know that they have a cosmetology program? And I was like, cosmetology? What is that? First of all, I was up there with the tomboys, like didn't do my hair, didn't do my makeup. And I was like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe I should look into that because maybe I could like cut some hair on the side while I'm going through school. And it was not my jam, but skin. That is when I knew I truly found what I was going to do with my life because I had struggled all growing up with acne. Still at the time, I was struggling with acne. And since I was in this program, we had like all these people at our disposal, all these college kids with acne going to school. So I spent 2 years in that program, which was super amazing. They're usually only 6 months. And I found it. I found my calling in life, if you will. I knew I was going to help people, and this was it because I had already been through that experience. And what I love about your question of the inner spark, because it's not like this, for me, it wasn't this knowing or this hearing of anything. It just kind of unfolded in front of me. And to this day, it continues, which is amazing. So that's kind of how I started and realized, and I have to be honest, listening to your podcast really made me go back and think about when did this? Because I've tried to get out of this industry several times and I keep staying here until I launched my line. That was kind of like, okay, I got it. I got it. This is where I'm supposed to be. So thankfully it's always been there. I didn't really see it or hear it. But that's what's amazing, I think, about this journey when you're really intentional about I'm going to be present and I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust that what's meant to be will be.
Love that. And I think it's so true. We don't always know it's our that spark within us until we have hindsight, until we can look back and be like, oh, there was something tugging me in this direction. I didn't really understand what it was at that time, but it was that little inner spirit that was guiding us where we were supposed to go. So I just was talking with you before we started recording here about how if you've never struggled with skin before in your entire life and you're like, what are we going to talk about acne today? What's the purpose of
Hmm.
this conversation? This episode might not be for you, and that's okay.
Hmm.
But for those of us that have struggled with our skin, I think you are I don't even have to explain to you because you know how deeply it impacts us. I have struggled with my skin my entire life. I've actually been on Accutane twice,
Mm.
and there have been moments in my life where my acne was so bad that I didn't want to leave the house. It
Mm.
prevented me from showing up as my full self in this world. It really impacted my confidence. So that's why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. And I would love if you would share kind of that timeline of you being in cosmetology school, discovering that, oh my gosh, I have this passion for skincare, to where you are now, where you have your own skincare line. Let's walk us through that,
Yeah.
please.
Yes, absolutely. I think, it kind of goes back to where I left school and realizing that all of this acne was following me. So I was very fortunate. I went right into aesthetic position after that. And I was mentored by somebody that was like in the industry over 20 years at that point. And here I just been gone to school for 2 years, and she's like, I need you to get more education. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. So I went to more education, and we were a really small business. Everyone just knew us by name. We never did any advertising. And once again, acne is what I focused on. Here I'm in my early, like mid 20s, and she was older, probably in her later 50s. And that's not the clientele she would ever have. And I took over for somebody else that didn't have any acne client. It just kept like showing up in my world. So I continued to dive into that, and then continue to treat acne skin. And then fast forward, I was approached by a really big, well-known organic brand within the spa industry. And I was an educator for them for 9 years. And that created a vast amount of knowledge for me, more than I could have ever have gotten staying in the treatment room by itself. So I did that, traveled the Pacific Northwest, was a total road warrior, and learned so much, saw more skin than I would ever have seen out of my own business. And then I decided it was time to have a child. So I had a child, and I had to slow down. I was like, this is crazy schedule. I was always traveling. So I stepped back and I went into consulting, and I did some sales for some companies on the side. And in that consulting was really interesting because I found whatever I say I will never do, I do. So I was consulting for this really big resort, and I'd worked with a direct spa director at multiple locations. And she said, someday you're going to have a product line. And I was like, oh no, because I know what I mean, I've seen all of the back end side of it. I'm like, that's definitely not for me, but thanks for believing in me. So I consulted for a while. And then from that consult, I had another esthetician who needed some help. So I was like, okay. So I ended up helping her for 3 years, not knowing I was going to help that long. And then it was time to move on because I lived like 25 minutes away. I'm a single mom at the time, and I needed to be there. I needed to be in the same town. So I opened up the business. Like I said earlier, I've tried to get out of this business so many times, but the inner spark or divine really had something better for me. So I opened up that business only as a waxing studio. And I mean, people were like, you're crazy. Like, they know you for acne. Why waxing? And it's hard. It's really hard because there's this huge piece of vanity with skincare that I really, really struggle with, because I feel like there is so much more to us than our skin. And so I felt like if you got into skincare, that means you have to be into anti-aging, which I'm just not into. And I was like still treating like the acne people on the side. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, I can't ignore this. Like, I have to now advertise that I do acne. So it was interesting because you kind of keep getting all these seeds dropped, or I did, needing all these seed drops in my life. And I was thinking, what am I doing? Like, why am I trying to hold this back and not share? I mean, I really, really know how to treat acne. Why don't I help them? I went back to that first thing of, you came here to serve. And that's just what I wanted, right? I really knew that I wanted to be in a service role. And so I was like, all right, well, here we go. And then I treated acne for like another 3 years. And I had colleagues who were just like, you just need to create an acne line. Cause I was having like amazing success. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I was really excited. 2020 came. I'm like, this is the year I'm going to do it. And then we got shut down. So Washington State got shut down like middle of March. And like I said, at the time I was a single mom and I was a rule follower. I am a rule follower. And
I am too.
so,
I am too.
yes, I cannot risk. There was threats out there of losing our license. And I was like, I can't risk this because this is
Yeah.
what I came here for. And then I was like, oh, wait, my goal for 2020 was to launch my brand. And so that's what I did. So I launched the brand in 2020 and I work solely remotely and coach people and help them and just help clear their skin. And I've been doing this now 23 years.
I love that so much. The universe just kept nudging you, nudging you, nudging you, nudging you. And here you
Yes,
are.
which is encouraging because people
Mm,
that feel like, when is it going to be my time or what's happening for me? I mean, if you really step back and look at it, you could be like, wow, there really are things working out for me. I truly believe what's meant for you will find you.
yes, I stand behind that. So, acne, it's super common. A lot of us struggle with it. What would you say are some of the biggest factors that contribute to persistent acne? I don't know, it
Yeah,
might
this,
vary with age ranges because teenagers, you've got hormones. So, just like broad level, you know?
oh, well, I love this because it's really good news because a lot of people think that they're doing something wrong. You know, so many myths out there really rock our world of worth, you know, thinking that
Hmm.
something's wrong with us or I'm doing something wrong. But truly, it's as easy as this. It's genetics. It's in your genes. You either have acne prone pores or you don't. It's like that easy. So, if you don't mind, I'll kind of explain acne for you so you can understand
Yeah,
it.
let's do
Because
it.
a lot of people don't know how. And I just think it's really, really helpful if you know how, I hate to say this, simple it is, but it is pretty simple. So if you know, really common, like we know our dead skin cells. I mean, you can feel the back of your hands, you can feel your arms, and you can be like, yeah, I can feel that's like,
Hmm.
those are dead skin cells. They're just going up and they're going to slough off. And we all know we have pores everywhere. Where your hair's coming out, you have a pore there. And what happens is it's either mom or dad or both give you this genetics of having acne. And what happens is this pore, not, if you see, you'll see like a lot of images that just have the pore and they'll have like the hair coming out of it and they'll have the oil in there. But what they don't show you is all the layers of dead skin cells. So there's like layers of dead skin cells all within your pore. And non acne prone skin sheds about a layer every 28 days. Acne prone skin, they shed 4 to 6 times that within that time. So if you think a small, tiny pore shedding and shedding and shedding these dead skin cells, and you naturally have oil coming in because you start developing your oil glands anywhere between 8 and 12. And I can see this. I mean, I even saw it on my own daughter. I saw her hair started getting oily and she started filling up. Her pores started filling up. She's going to have acne. Unfortunately. So you can see that the pores fill up. Now, this is where it kind of goes different for everybody. Your pore fills up, and sometimes it can fill up so much that it kind of like pops open and then it oxidizes, and that's your blackhead. Sometimes it fills and fills and fills, but it just stays underneath the skin. And we call that your closed comedones, that bumpy texture on your skin. Now, honestly, that's called non-inflamed acne. So you don't have like pimples or redness or anything like that. Truthfully, that's harder to get rid of, longer time than inflamed acne. So the inflamed acne happens and comes in there and your body's like, what's going on in this pore? And it sends all these white blood cells to that area and in comes pus. And so honestly, that is like the easiest to manage versus that. So that's how acne works, it takes 90 days to develop something. So you know how people are like, oh my God, I ate that piece of chocolate and I have like a blackhead or a pimple. No, it takes much longer for everything to really be really festering. And that's why it takes a longer period of time to actually get your skin clear, because you have to go through that process of shedding out that buildup. So that's really honestly how easy acne is.
I am learning stuff today. First of all, I have to say, my dermatologist has always said, Lana, like you have really horrible genetics. Both my parents had
Yeah.
horrendous skin. And he was like, you might struggle with acne into adulthood because genetically you
Yep.
are just not at an advantage. And so it was nice to hear that he knows what he's talking about, first of all, you know.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. I
But
mean, and that's a really, I love that he knows that, because a lot of derms, they study disorders and diseases of the skin. They don't necessarily study health of the skin. And that's really what we study, right? Is the health
mhm.
of the skin and getting the skin in that healthy, clear state. So he understands, he is ahead of it, understands that it's all in your genes.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then even talking about like I've always felt like if I have a blackhead, it's way less of a big deal than if I have white, like pimply whiteheads. But it's interesting also to hear that it takes 90 days because I've always felt like, yeah, if I eat something very sugary, especially I love Sour Patch Kids, but I don't eat it because I feel like it immediately makes my skin break out. But maybe that's a placebo effect, and it's not actually taking
It's true,
place.
because if you struggle with it already, if you have
Mhm,
acne prone skin, can some of those foods be triggering to acne? Very much so. But if you took all those foods out, whatever they may be, I mean, there's like a whole
mhm,
list I could give you, your acne will still be there. I've
mhm.
worked closely with naturopaths for many, many years, and that will send me their patients because they can only get them clear to a point.
Yeah. And I think that's super useful to hear because I remember when I went on Accutane, I had somebody shaming me for it, and they were like, "You just need to clean up your diet." And I'm not promoting doing Accutane; that's its own conversation. But I was like, I have tried everything. I have tried everything. So let's talk about the emotional component of acne. If you are treating people, you are probably firsthand seeing how much this is improving their life, improving their confidence. So let's dive into how acne, what do you witness, like how deeply it actually impacts people. Let's validate our feelings from somebody who is a professional in this space.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the first thing is to realize it's not your fault. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
like the number one thing to know, because there is so much shame. Just like you said, I mean, if you just cleaned up your diet, I can just
Mm-hmm.
tell you it's just not going to take your acne away. And there's so many myths. I studied in school, really common. You'll see it over the counter as well, a salicylic acid, right? That's like so common. Maybe I'm getting off track here. Sorry.
No, yeah.
But it's so common that that's how they treat acne. And then it's kind of benign, right? I mean, you could put it on the shelf and no one's going to get hurt. No one's going to get really dried out. I mean, it's kind of benign. And then Dr. James Fulton came into the scene. He's a pioneer in dermatology, and he was actually a co-creator of Retin-A, so tretinoin.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that discovered horrible acne, struggled horribly with acne, that this is really coming from your genes, but we can do X, Y, and Z to help clear your skin
Mm-hmm.
up.
What do you see on the front lines? I act like it's, the
Oh,
front lines, the emotional component, right? Like you must witness that for some people it impacts them very deeply because I know at periods in my life it has made me not want to even leave the house. So
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you must be seeing a lot of that emotional stuff in your work.
Oh, huge, huge. And can understand it myself with
Mm.
my own skin. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
it horribly with growing up on my chest and my back. I mean, and I lived in a community that had a pool, and I wanted to be on my bike, not at the pool. My friends be like, let's go to the pool. I'm like, oh, I gotta
Hmm.
wear my t-shirt and say, well, I can't burn my skin.
Yeah.
Really wasn't that, although my skin burns, but I was like so embarrassed from just all these like just pustules everywhere. And so it does really, really impact us. It's one thing if we can hide it and cover it. It's another thing when you can't put your hair all around your face. And if you're
Hmm.
leading with your face, and then that fear of judgment. that fear
Mm-hmm.
of judgment, trying to eliminate it. I would say we can all take a deep breath when we know it's not these myths, it's not our fault. And there's a lot of people that are really working hard. I mean, you can see them on a lot of social platforms, the body positivity movement with all these beautiful women and these beautiful shapes and colors that weren't ever really shown before. They're doing the same thing now with acne, trying to take away that stigma and that shame from
Mm-hmm.
people. But yeah, huge. I mean, I remember this one client I have is when I first started, she's really on maintenance, but when I first started, she wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't talk to me. I mean, when she was just so burdened with this, and she wore like really thick makeup, which trust me, I totally get. Um, but by the time, like, you could see every time when I was in treatment room treating, I treat every 2 weeks. By the time her first appointment came back, it's like you can see her head up like a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And where they're just like, wow, beaming. Cause I used to do when I was in treatment room, I would like do their befores and afters and would do like professional afters. And you could just see they're you can slowly just see like how they're just coming alive more and more and more because it's really hard to live with. I get that. And I will say this, really important. You get two things out. Know it's your genetics and know it's not curable. It's manageable. That's the thing with acne is that you don't cure it, but you manage it.
I love that. So if somebody like me, for example, my skin looks pretty good right now. I do have makeup on
Your
and I do
skin
have a
looks
light on my face,
great.
but I still am like very hard on myself. So somebody who my skin is still very acne prone, I have found that the less I do with my skin, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I do use I use Differin gel every night, and I
Mm-hmm.
just keep things very basic. But somebody like me, say my skin was much more inflamed, what does that treatment path look like? Is it different for every person? What do you recommend for somebody who's really struggling with acne?
So I think it's pretty simple in this way. How we treat the skin is we hydrate, exfoliate, treat. Those are three steps that we talk about the most. Exfoliation is super key on getting out. So that's your differin that you have. It's super important to clean out those pores and that top layer. Hydration is so important. I like to think of it like an ice cream sandwich. If you think your hydration's like the cookie on the outside, so if you're making an ice cream sandwich, you put the cookie down first, and then you hydrate, you exfoliate, you treat, and then you put the hydrator on top of it. It's like you're making this little sandwich, a concoction. If you put treatments, exfoliants on hydrated skin, you get a better result. The efficacy of your skin is better, and that product that you put on top actually works more efficiently. And when I say hydrate, we keep things pretty simple in our line. It's called hydrating serum. It's that simple. And it's a combination of hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, and aloe with some other great things in there as well. But that's the main bunch of it. So we're working on hydrating the skin, keeping the moisture up. We're also working on evening out the skin tone with that niacinamide, and you can also help balance oil production with that niacinamide. And then if you keep that moisture kind of plump, your exfoliants and your treatments work better. I mean, honestly, most people have a cleanser, most people have a moisturizer, but we do. I mean, I look at those, like people will send me what they're using and I'll look at their ingredient deck and I'll say, like, could this be comedogenic? I mean, sometimes they say they're non-comedogenic, and for that skin, it is going to be comedogenic. There's a lot of silicones that are used in products now to make your, it's like really smooth and buttery. Those are your silicones. And sometimes, even though they're not comedogenic, sometimes on certain skin, it can really cause a problem.
Interesting. So I know I'm missing the hydration step, and I'm going to be thinking about the ice cream sandwich analogy. So
Yeah.
that's great. That's great information. So I want to talk a little bit just about the skincare industry in general, because backtracking a little bit, you had said when you went into skincare, you didn't want to go into anti-aging. So
Yeah.
I know in general, but specifically as women, we feel a lot of pressure, especially in this day and age, to not age at all, just around, I mean, this doesn't just apply to skin, but just in general to like fit this perfect mold or whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I started getting Botox when I was really young, which I have since ceased, but that was how much pressure I felt to like not age at all. So do you find that some of like, well, first of all, I want to say I love that that's your approach, that you're like, I'm here to help you clear your skin, but I'm not buying into the anti-aging trend. But do you ever feel like there's crossover where people like aren't so supportive of that and want you to kind of dive into that space? Or has it been pretty firm that people are just visiting you for acne treatments and that's it?
I'm pretty firm on that. I'm pretty firm on that. You know, I did a lot of microneedling in my treatment
Hmm.
room, and that's because it's amazing with acne scarring. Um,
Yeah.
and the thing is that it's kind of a crossover. You know, if you hydrate, exfoliate, and treat, that's the same actually regimen for anti-aging. But I just don't want to buy into like all the little things that you could do, all the little products or the tools and different things that you can use. But they really cross over and the same. It's just maybe your treat is a little bit different in your acne than your anti-aging.
Gotcha.
And I'm glad that you're done with Botox, by the way. But anyways.
Yeah. I went back to my natural hair color. I gave up Botox. I'm like, at a certain period in my life, it did help me feel better, but now I just don't need the mask anymore. So,
Well, and I think that there is a time, right? There's a time and a
yeah.
place for it. I'm not a big advocate for young people because it
Yeah.
atrophies your muscle. I mean, you know, you're paralyzing things, but I mean, there's a time and a place, and you're right if it does make you feel better.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can kind of get lost in that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that was me for sure. So, in this day and age, there's so much stuff about skincare, right? So,
Yep.
if somebody is just, shopping for new skincare, what are things that they should be looking for? What are things that they should be avoiding? Help us navigate this market with everything being, I mean, I know, of course, this is assuming they're not purchasing from you, which we all want, but if people's just like in the
Right.
drugstore or whatnot, what are they, and they're working on a budget, what should they be looking for and what should they be avoiding?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. If you look, because first of all, let's just acknowledge how overwhelming
Yeah.
the aisles are. Like if you go in there, you're like, what do I believe? And then I'm a 13-year-old. I know what's popular and what's trending. And she's always like, Mom, you should do this. And Mom, I'm like, no. Like, but if you really look at what you need, you've got to exfoliate and treat the skin. And when I say exfoliate, I very, very rarely do a mechanical exfoliation. So that's like a scrub. I really rarely ever do that. It's a very, very special occasion for that. Otherwise, exfoliation, like you're using, different. That's
Mm-hmm.
an exfoliation. We use a lot of mandelic acid. Mandelic is beautiful. It's an alpha hydroxy. It's an anti-inflammatory, so it really helps to soothe. It brightens the skin. So I love it for that post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, whatever, PIH. It's those red spots, brown spots, purple
Mm-hmm.
spots that you get. So I love a different salicylic can help, but salicylic is going to be more for the people that have a non-inflamed acne. So a lot of bumps that you have. I wouldn't really go for things that you just put on and off your skin, like a cleanser. I mean, a cleanser is a cleanser. I wouldn't go for something really harsh, something nice and gentle. A cleanser is good, but I would spend your money in your treatment area. So whether that's a benzoyl peroxide, whether that's a mandelic acid, differin, a retin-A source, tretinoins, that's where I would spend your money at when you're looking for treatments. And give yourself time. That's another thing I think that's a really struggle. You really have to let your skin work through what it's going through. Like I said earlier, 90 days. So you got to let your skin have that period and don't jump around. When you jump around a lot, your skin it's just like your body. I mean, you're just completely putting it out of whack. So find something and stick with it for at least 3 months before you change anything. And when you do, if you do, you really only want to change one thing at a time. But most people have a cleanser, most people have a moisturizer sitting around,
Mm-hmm.
and I would start with treatments.
Okay, that's good to know. Is there an age that you recommend like retin-A's or the exfoliant part of the process. Is there an age where you wouldn't recommend starting before that age if somebody's younger and struggling with acne in their teenage years?
No, I put 8-year olds on mandelic acid. I mean, I know that's might sound crazy to you, but it's if you have keratosis pilaris, that KP that bumps on the back of your arm, they're getting more and more prevalent all over for people. So I see a lot of young girls having like cheeks just full of KP, and I'll put them on mandelic acid. So that's what I love about mandelic, is it's really gentle. So it's safe. And we, have like skin bundles that we put together. And in that tween is actually a mandelic acid. And shucks, I think I put my daughter on it when she was like 9 or 10, maybe. And she's been on it, and it keeps her skin clear.
Interesting. I asked because there's this whole TikTok craze right now that's talking about like the 10-year-old girls in Sephora. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I just saw something about
yeah.
this today.
So I was watching one where one gal was saying that like an 8-year-old came in and she was wanting some retinol cream and she was trying to advise her against it. And I just was curious about, I mean, similar to like Botox, I think younger and younger and younger, we're really caring about our skincare. And I'm like, is there a line where we're going too far, where we're putting too much on our skin at a young age and it, could have adverse impacts? That was
Well,
where.
I think that's a good point. I mean, the whole thing, unfortunately, is these young people are getting sucked into all the advertising, right? I
Mhm.
mean, lots of advertising, lots of playful names and colors and smells, and it pulls you in. I get it. Like I said, I have my daughter. I see it. And although she does use our retinol serum, it's very different. I mean, retinols are made all different. Ours is an oil, and it's extremely hydrating when you use it. So she's on it because she struggles with non-inflamed acne. So
Mhm.
her exfoliant is mandelic, and her treatment is actually the retinol serum. But it's not. I mean, the way we formulated it is very carefully, so it's not like a bomb that goes off in your skin. Where some retinol you really have to build into them. That's not ours.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm thinking of conversations with my sisters. I have 6 siblings, and I think 4 or 5 of us have been on Accutane. Again,
Hmm.
genetics.
Right.
But I have a couple sisters that are like, I can't use any kind of retinol. Like, my skin gets inflamed. And I'm like, you have to build up to it. You know what I mean? But I guess it does show that it could be the product too, because if you're going from zero to
Mhm.
like something extreme, yeah, your skin is not going to love that. So,
That's right. That's right.
and I think it just all comes back to going back to like the younger generation. I think we just we're feeling pressure younger and younger and younger to be put together, to not age, to have all these things. It's why my generation is getting Botox in their 20s when now I don't like, I wouldn't recommend that, right? I'm all for women doing whatever they want to do to feel their best, but it's just like that. The fact that there's 10-year-olds worrying about skincare. I'm like, at 10 years old, even with acne, I was not in Sephora buying expensive products. You know what I mean? So
I wasn't either.
we're
Not
just
even out of, it took me going to college to do that. So yeah, I get
I
it.
just I just had my Maybelline. What was that foundation that was like, it came in like, it was just this thick stuff I would just coat on. It made it look so much
Oh,
worse, but I was like, well, it was the mousse. It was the mousse. But so with your company, if somebody comes to you, is it individualized treatment? Like, so say I came to you and I'm like, I know you work from home, it's an online website. Do you look at my skin specifically and tailor products specifically to my skincare, or what does that look like?
yeah. So you can do a couple things. If you go on our website, we have a skincare quiz that you can go on. It'll ask you different questions. Obviously, we've programmed that in a very specific way. We've spent a lot of time and energy. Different questions lead you to different answers. And then it creates something for you. With that being said, we have a number on our website, people can text it, and you can get one-on-one work with me. And so you just text me your pictures. I usually have 3 pictures sent to me with all the product that you're using. Ask other questions. There's more lengthy process as well. I do look at diet. I mean, there are things I do look at.
Mhm.
lifestyle, diet, because there's some really easy tricks to deal with acne as well, and provide those for you. I look at makeup a lot. Cosmetics are tricky because they change their ingredients quite frequently.
Hmm.
So I always say, like, if we've got you clear for a while and all of a sudden you start breaking out, let's go back and look at your ingredient deck. I was just doing this for one of my clients, and actually for the first time I noticed on this particular brand's website said you need to check our website frequently as our ingredients do change. I'm like, wow, see, it's, they're saying that. So I look at what you're putting on your skin, anything that you're putting on your skin. I personally like you to use as much as what you have for a couple reasons. First, it's more cost effective, but second, your skin's used to it. So if there's no ingredients in there that are comedogenic or that can be causing products or causing problems, then I want you to keep using it because your skin knows that, and then you can just supplement, like I said, with maybe some hydration and some treatment products. But yeah, I think it's, I mean, like, we're really here. That's just because we're women owned, and this is our boat. There is just a real need for help when it comes to this because it's so overwhelming. And yeah, so we really try and make it easy to get a hold of us.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us today, because I know I've even learned a couple things where I'm like, okay, I might change this about my my routine. But more than anything, besides of course all of the knowledge that you shared with us today, I wanted this conversation just to be about normalizing acne, just like everything else I talk about. Like, let's break the stigma. A lot of us struggle with it. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's not something that you're doing wrong. It's not something faulty within you. It's just a part, for some of us, of this human experience. And I love that you talked about it's not curable, it's manageable, because I think some of us are out here looking for a cure. And that would be a pursuit that maybe we would never find peace on. So
Well, and
um
it's true. You have all this online presence with a lot of filters, right? And
mhm.
so people uh, will get online and show a filtered skin, and it's not even their skin. I mean, and then we're just so hard on ourselves because why don't I look like this or what? And they probably
Mhm.
look very, very similar to what your skin looks like.
Yeah, a lot of professional photos, celebrity photos are all airbrushed. But I always say when it comes to filters, this is kind of a tangent, but it's not just about showing other people that, you know, we don't need to be perfect. It's about showing your brain. If you show up and you filter your face out, it's like showing your brain that you aren't good enough as you are, right? So let's
Mhm.
just be our real authentic selves. So, Dani, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. I want you to just let everybody know where they can find you, what you're working on. Just plug your business so anybody struggling with acne can find their way to you.
Yes. Well, thank you. And I want to say one more thing to that, because just like I know you're really into health as well, just like your
Mhm.
journey with health, your skin's the same way. Like, it's really, really a process. And if we can learn to and embrace that and allow our body to be and allow it to go through this process of change, it comes much easier. You can find us at over at acne.com. We're on Instagram. We're on the old talk as well, and Facebook. And we'd love to connect. My direct is Dani at over at acne.com. And I am happy to help anyone that wants help.
All right. Well, thank you, Dani.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to